Hello, everyone. Last year, I spoke to Kaycee Lai, CEO and founder of Promethium, about being awarded Best New Product CDO recommended by a panel of 10 CDOs. We have Kaycee back today to demonstrate why Promethium was awarded such a prestigious award. Kaycee, great to be with you again.
Hey, good to see you again, Mark. Thank you for having me.
And are you coming to us from San Francisco today?
Well, Silicon Valley, Bay Area, but yeah, close enough.
Okay, West Coast. Good weather out there anyway.
Well, yeah, we get spoiled. I think if it hits below 65 degrees, we start complaining.
Well, I certainly understand that. Well, Kaycee, today I think what we would like to do is take a look at the product, see what all the buzz is about. Are you prepared to give us a show and tell?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm super excited.
Great, let's get started.
All right. So as you can see here in Promethium, one of the capabilities that we have is making it super easy for both business people as well as data engineers and data analysts to very quickly not only find the data that they're looking for, but also be able to build data sets and be able to answer questions that they want for analytics in a fraction of the time by being able to do all the work that's required from start to finish, right? From the discovery, right? The ingestion, the prep, the modeling, the query, etc. And so all this actually starts fundamentally from actually being able to connect to any data source in your environment, because when you have global visibility, you actually have a lot more data available, at the tip of your fingertips, being able to answer the questions that you need. So you can see here in Promethium, we can connect to a number of different data sources. It's super easy to add different data sources in Promethium. But overall, we can support over 200 different types of data sources. Now, once we connect to them, very, very easily, without moving any data, we can actually show you a catalog view where everything you can find, every table, every view, every query in your environment in one place. And this happens literally in minutes. So in minutes, we can give CDOs, we can give business people, we can give data teams a single logical view of everything that they have across every database, data lake, data warehouse, even S3 buckets. So that way they can actually see where everything is. They can find it. They know who updated. They know how popular it is based on how often it's been queried. Auxiliary information like how many tags does it have, how many columns and fields, and where to actually find it. So this actually is the foundation of Promethium, being able to start by actually knowing and seeing where everything is.
So, Kaycee, is this data all auto-populated by interrogation of the data source itself once you connect to it?
Exactly. There is nothing that the user had to do, right? This is 100% auto-populated. And when I say populated, what I mean is it's logical, right? So you did not move any data into Promethium, and that has two implications. One is security, and the second is speed, right? We didn't have to spend a long time crawling and actually moving, and costs that we don't have to store anything, and you don't have to store anything.
Correct. So you're creating a virtual view into all of this landscape of data.
Exactly. And you can then, filter and sort by, different data sources, different schemas. You can say, hey, I only want things that are endorsed by my data steward, right? And that gives you a much smaller set. Or maybe you want things that, maybe are not so good, warning things, maybe things that have been deprecated. So it allows you to very quickly find what you're looking for. Maybe you only want to look at things that are your favorites, for example, right? So users actually get to create and customize their own view. And then on top of that, a lot of us are used to just searching, right? I mean, I think that's one of the things that we do at Promethium is we want to make it where everyone can be, or a good, data analyst, a business analyst, or anyone can make data-driven decisions. And as we were doing that, Mark, we realized, wow, there's a lot of people with different learning curves, right? In terms of how skilled and how they are in using data, from data scientists, data engineers, data analysts, business folks. But we realized one thing that everyone knows how to use is search, right? Mm-hmm. Thank you, Google. Thank you, Amazon.
Yep.
And so Promethium allows you to just simply have a search bar and just type in anything. You don't have to know the exact name of the table, the exact column. So I can just say, hey, I'm just going to type in something. Maybe it's called radio. And you can see the search would go through multiple vendors.
Right. I have a quick
Yes.
question for you, Kaycee,
Yes.
on something that you shared when you said you could sort of sub-select by sort of certified by my data steward, or can you go back to that panel? I just have a quick question for you on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
That was a pretty powerful capability for filtering these endorsements. Yeah. So that seems to suggest that once Promethium is attached to all these data sources, it's been able to access all the technical metadata to describe the content of the data source, that there's some level of curation opportunity within Promethium for the data stewards or for the folks that are managing the data landscape who have additional knowledge and understanding of the characteristics of a data store, how it's prepared, whether it's been curated, whether quality's been validated in it, and that they can go in and sort of subcategorize those data sources within the context of these criteria. Is this list dynamic, or is it a static set of categorizations? That's my question. Can you?
Yeah, it's dynamic, right? All these things happen dynamically, and what's great about that is it actually improves the governance, right, of the data that you're working with. Because before, a lot of people might do this just solely on metadata, and so you're relying on someone actually going in there and actually entering this, which may or may not, number one, may or may not be timely, and number two, is subject to a lot of bias. However, with Promethium, we actually can stay in sync and actually give the data steward or whoever is doing the curation, live views. For example, we can show you, for example, as you click on something, not only do you see the metadata, but you can see, in live real time, right, what the data actually looks like. And you can also get an idea of how it's actually being used, right? Under usage, it'll actually show you, hey, here are all the different ways that it's actually being used, right? Some of them are good because it's been published, some of them are not, and how popular they are in terms of views. This is dynamic. So this is actually what we found to be a very important element for people to decide whether or not they want to use something. I want to know, what my coworkers have used as the answer. Right. I want to know how popular it is with my coworkers, right? So that actually is live and dynamic, and you can also see if there's any comments that people have put in there. That it kind of gives us that Yelp-like review aspect, right? Like if I read something from Mark and I trust Mark and Mark likes it, I'm more likely to say, well, maybe I'll give it a shot, right? And so what we find is, there's only about a couple different things that people really look at and value. And what we did at Promethium is, well, let's automate that, number one. And number two, let's put it in one place. So you don't have to jump around to multiple tools. So in one place, we can show you, hey, this is the data you're looking for. This is where it came from, like which location, which vendor, which schema, how it's actually being used. We can show you the actual values. We can show you what your peers are saying. And so that makes it much easier for the data steward to come in and give an endorsement, right? When they can actually have that level of visibility to actually see how it's actually being used.
Right. Thank you. That was a great explanation. I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, no, you bet. And so one of the core things about Promethium is that we kind of go beyond just finding things that may be good or may be bad. Because what we found in analytics, Mark, is that a lot of times you don't know if it's really good or bad, or I should say relevant to what you're looking for, until you can actually work with the data, right? Until you can actually see it, right? And this is the biggest gap, all right, in data management with data management tools, because oftentimes to work with it, they'll ask you, well, you got to go out, you got to use another product. Sorry, we only do this part, right? We only handle the discovery part, we only handle the governance part. Right. Modeling done by someone else, queries done by someone else, visualizations done by someone else. And this is a challenge that a lot of folks have. And this is when we talk to CDOs, this is the challenge they have, because how do you make sure your team is skilled enough to actually use all those products very, very well, number one. Number two, how do you integrate them, right? Who's going to integrate them, and how long is it going to take to integrate them, and how much is it going to cost to integrate them? And so with Promethium, we're going to provide you a nice integrated experience when you do that. So let me give you an example of that. So let's say, I looked for something called, radio, right? And I search for that, and it's going to now look through the entire system and say, okay, you've got a couple of things called radio. Now, one of the things that I could look at is, hey, this one has actually been endorsed and it's actually been published. Maybe this is a good place for me to start. And if I look at it, I do see some metadata descriptions, right? Hey, this is a good data set for subscriptions. And these are the things that it tells you. But one of the things that is actually more powerful is that it can tell me the answer that was used, and it could show me, right, that answer. So if I were to click on this, for example, it will actually show me how this data set is currently being used in that answer in a level of detail that makes it easy for both a business user or a data person to look at it. So you can see here, right? I clicked on radio subscriptions, which was the answer that was there, right? And so it's going to open a new tab and come in here. And immediately it can show me the visualization that was created using this data set, right? And so it's, I don't have to be super technical. I can, if I'm a business person and I want to know about this particular data set, I probably have some business contact, right? So this result gives me some type of confirmation that's a little bit easier for me to understand, right? Like this is how many, what the revenue is by the different vendors we have. This is revenue by different payment methods. This is revenue by the different plans and terms. This is one by different packages, right? And so it gives me this that is very comfortable for a business user to be able to understand.
Right? And this answer was created by someone who went against the data to answer a specific question. So that answer is cataloged, and now it can be shared and it can be consumed by others.
Yes, absolutely, right. And it's everything's dynamic. So, for example, right, I don't want to look at all the terms. Maybe I only care about monthly, quarterly, and annual terms, right? And so I can just filter live dynamically there on the fly. And so this right in one spot, we actually found the data set and let you work with the data set very quickly and dynamically here. Now, you can also see, for example, if there are any stories, right? And stories are what we call natural language generations, where, we'll go through and we'll find for you, hey, are there any interesting statistical trends? Are there any outliers that you may have? And so Promethium would actually go through here, for example, and say, hey, we can detect Z-score, for example, if you want, correlation analysis. And so users can actually use this to kind of go through and say, well, maybe I want to see if there's anything interesting, right, from here. And I can go ahead and select whatever dimension that I want and go from here. So it gives you a way to further refine and further understand and trust the data, because a lot of times we might have data that looks good, but then we might not really understand what the implications are, right, in terms of, hey, what's going to happen next. And so what we want to do at Promethium is actually go all the way. In addition to helping you find it, put it together, and even visualize it, we've realized that the data literacy may not be at the same level for everyone in the organization. And so if there's a way for us to explain things for you and make it a little bit easier, that is certainly something that we can do at Promethium, right? So while that is running, I'm going to kind of go back here and show you that in Promethium, you can actually, everything that you do actually comes full circle, right? So all the cataloging, all the prep, all the questions that you answer, it all becomes instantly searchable, instantly available, instantly curatable here. But we also allow you to have a catalog of answers, if you will, right? So I can see everything that, if instead, as a business user, instead of looking at raw tables, I might want to look at something that's semantically easier to find, right? So I can actually just look at things that make sense for me as a business user. Like I'm just looking at, account engagements, right? I'm looking at subscriptions and so forth. And that allows me to find things a lot easier. And the other thing that we can do is, we know a lot of business people who find it intimidating to use data management tools, right? And for them, they would rather just ask a question and be able to answer a question, right? And so this is something that we added, right, from a natural language and an AI perspective. So imagine, let's say I wanted to ask a question, right? Like, what is the revenue subscription by plan, by vendor from 2014 and 2019 between 5 and 20, right? And it sounds pretty simple, Mark, but what if you've never built this data set before?
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
The easy part is, a lot of tools will actually pre-build all the queries, and then you can just go and find and just pick the different columns and different filters. The hard part is if you never even built this data set before, which means no one's actually found it, no one's actually written the ETL job, no one's actually moved the data, no one's actually prepped it, et cetera. That's the hard part, and you don't expect a business user to do that. And so, well, with Promethium, we let you ask that question. You can either assign it to someone, you can try build it yourself, or you can say, I am going to ask for some help. Call the reasoner from Promethium. And what Promethium will do is, using our capabilities, global discovery and AI, immediately figure out what you mean by that question, right? We immediately figured out what are the terms you want to know, right? And where the data would be, and how would you put it together in order to answer this question? And so you can see in this case, for example, right, that, hey, we found that in order to answer this question, right, you would need a table from Oracle, another one from MySQL, and another one from Snowflake, and you would need to put it together this way in order to answer the question. Now, you don't have to trust us. You can actually, change things around. Like maybe I don't want to do an inner join, I want to do a left join. That is actually all up to you. We force it on you. We will suggest it, like we think this will actually make sense, but you don't have to. And you can see here that, we've actually gone through and we figured out for you that you wanted to know between 2014 and 2019. We've already applied that filter for you. We figured out for you that this esoteric column called MER actually means revenue. And we've actually already applied the filter for you between 5 and 20. Right. So this is all done in a way that's really non-intimidating, right? All I did was ask a question. I still got to edit it. Promethium did not make it black magic, black box, right? And so that's the nice part. And here I just ran a query, right? And I got a preview of the results. If you want to, right, we can even show you the actual, right? We can actually let you write SQL if you wanted to. So there's a lot of things that you can do that in Promethium that makes it a little bit easier, right, for everyone. And so this is some of the capabilities that we've done to make it a little bit easier. Now let's switch back here. Let's see. Remember I told you we're going to go and look at the narration and the storytelling. So before we just saw charts, right? Before we just saw charts, Mark. Well, here, right, that this was all we had before was the visualization. Right, we had these charts, we had the pivot table, we had the word cloud here, and that's all fine and great. But what if someone didn't know what this meant? Right. Well, this is where the stories come in to actually explain to you. Hey, look, we found the average distribution. Right. We found the distribution ranges are here, and this is usually what data scientists do to validate that this data set actually works. Right, and it's okay. Or maybe things that you should look at, right? This distribution is relatively even, for example, 39 entities and values between this and this. So it's the statistical analysis that we just automatically did for you to kind of help you validate, trust, and make sure that this is something that you want. And this allows you to do a number of different things. Like I can add more queries, I can delete queries. So you can actually add multiple queries to associate with a single answer if you want, to give you a lot of flexibility in building.
Yeah, that's very powerful. And you on the example you used prior to coming to this, where you could go in as a user and make adjustments to the query and the filtering, you wouldn't need to if an inner join or an outer join. If you were an unsophisticated business user, you could just assume the default is going to get you into the ballpark and go ahead and run it that way. You wouldn't need to even understand that you could make those changes. Exactly.
What we like to say at Promethium is it's simple enough, right, for a non-technical user, but it's powerful enough for a data engineer, data analyst who, they want all the bells and whistles, right? They want to be able to change all the conditions. They want to be able to change the filters, different group bys, different sources, and et cetera. Like all those things that actually can be done, right, instantly by any of the users. We
Right.
also allow a full advanced mode where people can actually upload their existing SQL. They can just write SQL, or they can mix and combine SQL, right? That's the other part, is everything that you produce in Promethium, they become objects that are usable, reusable, and editable. And that's what data teams really like, because Mark, if you've already built something and I'm looking for the same thing, why do I want to rebuild it? In fact, I cause more problems when I try to rebuild it, because I might make a mistake and now you and I are going to argue, right? Whether or not we should be doing this.
Yeah. Can you share a user story or a success story of a client with this rich set of feature functionality provided by Promethium?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, it's all of our clients. In the last year, Promethium allowed all our customers to actually answer 16,000 questions. Now, think about that. That's like 16,000 new ETL jobs. That's the easiest way to think about it, with 16,000 advanced queries and 16,000 new dashboards. Which, if you ask them, would you guys ever do this without Promethium? The answer is heck no, right? We would never do it, because it would have been too complex or taken too long. And so we've helped customers, figure out, for example, if you wanted to make a quick adjustment in inventory levels, right, in supply chain levels because of inclement weather, right? How would you be able to get that visibility when the data existed, some from Snowflake, some from Oracle, some from Microsoft SQL Server, some from Google BigQuery, some from just a cloud bucket that someone just dumped raw files into? Well, the short answer is, before Promethium, you would have to sit there and wait for the ETL to load everything into a single source first, and then wait for someone to write all the transformation. And then, after a few weeks, they might have something where they can show the business user, hey, does this look okay? Well, during that time, the weather may have changed, and that decision to adjust inventory and supply levels may no longer be relevant. And so we've been able to help that customer within 5 minutes be able to get that analysis, get that query without having to do any type of ETL, complex ETL, manual ETL, et cetera. Right. And so now within 5 minutes, they can, boom, give this to the business user and say, what do you think? We also have customers in retail that they are an e-commerce company and they sell through many, many channels. So the same product can be sold through 50 different outlets, for example, right? And they will need to keep track of how each outlet is doing, how each partner is doing. They need to keep track of the pricing levels, the discount levels, the margin levels. The problem with that is it's always a quote unquote different answer each time, depending on what you're trying to find in terms of the item, in terms of the vendor, et cetera. And so for them, they were able to just dynamically ask questions each time, but then also be able to just say, hey, how are the top 100 items doing today? How are the top 20 items doing today? How are the top 100 items doing today based upon discount levels? Which items do I need to apply discount levels to move it faster? Right? And being able to just simply ask that question, and for Promethium to automatically find the data, put it together for you, give you the query and the answer, and then even take you to that outlet within a single click to be able to view in real time how it's actually performing. So it's pretty powerful when you can condense that amount of time with all the automation that we provide.
I know that you've done a lot of research and been involved in a lot of the struggle in coming to the hypothesis that surrounded coming up with a product like Promethium to fill a gap in the marketplace. And today we have some frameworks that are really starting to make noise in terms of how data is managed in the landscape. The data fabric, for example, and data mesh. Could you comment on where you see Promethium fitting into that framework? Are you more on because it seems to me that you're kind of a little of both, actually.
Yeah, it's funny. We get that question a lot these days, and the thing that I would say is that there's a lot. Number one, there's a lot of confusion. Well, there's a lot of excitement and there's a lot of confusion, right? according to Gartner, I think data fabric is like the highest inquiry topic that they have, right? If you read the definition of data mesh, you'll understand that it's not a product.
Right.
Data mesh is a framework, right? It's like agile development. You can't go to a vendor and say, I would love to buy agile development, right? It encompasses so many things. And so the easiest way I like to explain it is, well, a data fabric is a product. A data mesh is a framework. And a data fabric fits into the data mesh framework very, very well, right? And so that's the easiest way to kind of understand that. And so I always kind of raise an eyebrow when someone says like, we've got the best data mesh. It's like, really? Because that would mean you have one product that actually solves everything from governance to security to centralization, decentralization, network access rules, right? As well as data access. And it's just, well, no, you don't, because those are actually multiple products strung together with a lot of different frameworks, a lot of different services to pull that off. We think it's a beautiful framework and it's a great concept. But again, data mesh is not a product.
Right. And so in terms of the objective promise of data mesh, which is the whole idea that I believe that you can ultimately within that framework create a set of data products that have all the things that you described around them in encapsulation, and there's some level of automation to creating all that human interface, knowledge. Promethium really takes you into the dimensionality of that framework with a data fabric approach, which underneath is essentially a really sophisticated implementation of data virtualization. Would you say that's true?
Well, it's a sophisticated implementation of data virtualization for one part, just the query access layer, right? So if you think about what a data fabric is, and I actually think the term is very beautifully named, because if you think about the word fabric, there's a connotation of it's flexible, right? It's soft, it's dynamic, but it pulls things and connects things together, right? And so if you think about that, what is it that data fabric needs to do? It needs to connect to all your different data sources, all the sources of data that you could possibly use for analytics, right? Doesn't matter what type they are, what location they are, it has to connect. And then the second thing that it needs to do is give you the visibility, right? What do I have? What's good? What's bad? And then beyond that is allowing you to work with the data, right? Can I assemble it? Can I put things together? Can I access it? Can I query it? Could it be a direct query, or could it be a virtual query, a federated query, right? So that's where the virtualization is just one part, right? Because you don't need virtualization all the time. And I would argue you don't want virtualization all the time because of performance limitations.
That's right.
Now, then what you need to do is, when you have this global access to so many different things now in one place, you need help. You need help, right? Someone needs to say, Mark, you pick this. Mark, this is why you should pick this. Mark, this is why it would make sense if you put it together, or maybe you should try that, or other people have done this, Mark. And that's where the suggestions, recommendations come from, right? Now, if you look at Gartner's definition, right, it kind of stops there, right? With some orchestration, collaboration, right? What Gartner said, look, have a metadata index, have the ability to discover, have the ability to access the data, have some AI and ML to recommend it, and collaborate it. What we've done is basically said, well, we think we need to do more to really help people understand, right? And that is why we added visualization. It could be ours, it could be Tableau, Power BI, literally doesn't matter. And that's why we also added the narration and storytelling, the auto insights piece, because we feel like that completes the journey. If I could see something in English that says, this is what this chart means, everyone can read it, everyone can understand it. Right. So we feel like you need to do those two layers before you get there. And our customers really appreciate that. And talking to, folks like Gartner, they've actually said, wow, this is beyond what we thought a data fabric could do, right? This is actually more than our minimum definition. But the one thing that they will agree is a data fabric needs to have all those components, right?
Right.
It has to have all that metadata layer, all the connectivity layer, all the data access layer, and then the suggestions and the collaboration.
Yeah, you've woven a lot of that together in a very elegant, product, which has really been well received in the market. Can you share with us a little bit about the typical customer or the typical buying center in the organization where the value proposition resonates well within the enterprise for Promethium, and you're finding a point of entry to get at delivering that value proposition?
Yeah, well, funny enough, or maybe coincidentally, it's the CDOs that really are very supportive of Promethium, right? That's usually where we start the conversations, and it's not a surprise because they're in charge of getting answers to the business, right? If you think about it, that's one of their main jobs. There is a data governance aspect, but there's also the insights. How do you actually get answers to the business very quickly? And that is always something that we hear from a lot of CDOs, that a lot of times they could be under a lot of pressure from the business to not deliver insights more quickly. How do I, businesses ask for self-service, and up to now, self-service meant go refresh a dashboard, right? If it was that easy, people wouldn't complain about it. What business really means is kind of what I just showed you, is help me build something from scratch, right? Without going through all the complex machinations, without waiting for months. And so that's usually where we have a lot of traction in terms of getting support within an organization, because that way the CDO can see how Promethium can fit within their whole entire ecosystem. And then the users that we really enable and empower are the data engineers and the data analysts. The guys who had to do this complex discovery, the complex modeling,
right.
The ETL and complex SQL. You now have a single tool to do all of that, right, in one place, right? That's powerful. That's AI driven. It's automated, shareable. All this that you didn't have before. So that's where we get a lot of support, from the troops, if you will. A simple analogy I like to make, Mark, is if analytics, those dashboards were the final plate of food that you want to eat, right? Beautifully plated, garnished, etc. Your food is what's in the refrigerator, right? The data warehouse and data source databases might be the actual refrigerator. Everything else in the middle, the knives, the pots and pans, the recipe cookbook and how to put it together, that's Promethium, right?
Wow. That's powerful. That is a powerful summation, and it really resonates, I think, well in terms of providing a reference point for understanding how the product pulls the data together into insight, value, consumption, calories that power things, right? So that's beautiful. Well, Kaycee, looks like we're about out of time. I'll give you the final word. What would you like to share, the final parting thoughts as we wrap up the demo today?
Yeah, well, number one, thank you for having us. We're very humbled and very appreciative, for the support that we're getting from the CDO, the data community. We're going to keep innovating, keep making it faster, making it easier to use. One thing I will add is, we have actually released a free SaaS trial online, very easy to use. Within 5 minutes, you're up and running. We've gotten more usage in the last month than all of last year. So it's actually being received very well. And so I do encourage folks, and this is a good way for data analysts and data engineers to very quickly see Promethium in action. And then, to go along with that, we've also sponsored a book called 97 Things Every Data Engineer Should Know. And it's a great book to actually help anyone who's a data engineer or data analyst navigate a lot of the pitfalls of the fun parts of the job. And so please check it out. It's free from Promethium. So go to our website, www.pm61data.com. Go ahead and download the book and enjoy. I think you guys will really like what you see.
Title of the book again?
97 Things Every Data Engineer Should Know.
Was that number 97, did you say?
97, yes.
97, that's what I thought you said. And, there's always something in a name, your URL, can you explain how you came to that URL?
Absolutely. So Promethium is actually an element on the periodic table. And so the symbol is PM and the atomic number is 61. And we're a data company. That's how it's PM61 data. I picked the name Promethium because I realized that one of the reasons we have in the whole data landscape is that there's too many separate tools, right? Especially governance and analytics was always separated. But really, they should be two sides of the same coin, right? You can't really do good governance without analytics and vice versa. So I was trying to find a connotation of the duality. And what I realized is governance exists because people don't want you to use analytics for bad things. And that is synonymous to knowledge, right? Mm-hmm. Knowledge can be used for good or bad. And so I remember after 4 years of Latin in high school, the story of Prometheus, who gave fire to man, when fire symbolized knowledge. And Zeus got really mad at him, said, hey, with that knowledge will come a bunch of bad stuff, right? And you're going to get punished for that. And so that's where I was going. It's like, look, it doesn't have to be if it can actually work together, right? Which is what we've showed you here in Promethium. You can't have active governance as well as fast, agile, self-service analytics all together.
Well, that's fascinating. And, Kaycee, I could talk to you for 8 hours a day. I don't know, because you fall into I've got this sort of category of 4 types of people in the world. There's the creators, the designers, the builders, and maintainers. And clearly, you're in that, what I call triple 80-20 rule application. You're the 0.8 person in 100 who has created something really, really compelling. So I encourage all of the viewers to really check out Promethium, take advantage of that free trial or sample that's available. I think you'll be really impressed. And myself as a data practitioner, I know I am and have been as well. Mark Johnson, Editorial Board Chair for CDO Magazine, and also Regional Vice President for Fusion Alliance and Executive Data and Analytics Leader there. I've had the pleasure of talking to one of my favorite people, Kaycee Lai at Promethium Data. And now we know the story behind the name. Take care and have a great day.
Thank you so much.